Good morning, Wood-Mizer family. I wanted to do a quick video today for those of you who have, excuse me, the 25 horse Kohler, and well, in this instance with this problem, this can happen to any engine on any gasoline one so far anyways. So what I have here is an engine that was brought in. Customer says it won't start unless he runs fuel down the carburetor. Totally fine. So here's what I found out, and here's something that you should check if you find yourself in the same issue. Spin your... Now, what first thing I did was this vent tube here, which is normally crammed into this little unit right here, is a direct access to the float bowl. So what I usually do, we'll grab a can of Carburetor carb cleaner, fill this up, and yeah, okay, well, it's going to run on it for a few seconds. Big deal. What happens is the float on the inside here, there's a big horseshoe shaped float, and the needle and seat is located at the back. Anyways, that's not important. So I filled it up, runs fine. Of course, when it runs out, it starts to die out unless you run the choke out a little bit. So anyways, I should have looked at this first, and hopefully you will do this too. You come over to the fuel filter. You can see, oh, there's the gasoline level line, right? Well, not necessarily. If you look down here, it's actually a little easier to see from this side here. You can see there's a line of fuel and this mysterious, focus, extra line on top. Now, pretty much telling me that this is oil and water sitting on top of each other, which had a gander at the fuel tank. And while the level is here, if you look inside, you kind of can't see that. Anyways, moral of the story is the level is a lot higher. So somehow or another, usually it'll be this little grommet that splits, and if this one sits out, we're on Canada's west coast where it rains every day, it seems like, except for 4 months where it's bone cooking hot. So anyways, usually this is something to check for. What we're going to do, I know that there's water in the fuel, so I'm going to take and drain this out. I've got a filter that separates out water from fuel. If you are in this situation, these filters are extremely cheap to pick up. They're like 15-20 bucks, and they've got an ultra fine screen in there so that allows fuel to go through, water sits on top. So what I'm going to do right now is drain this tank, run it through there, and I'll show you the results. But moral of this story is always check your filter. First off, number one, to see if it's getting fuel. First, to see if the lift pump is actually drawing fuel from the tank. Number two, you want to check and make sure that there isn't bubbles coming in here to let you know that there's a split in the fuel line, so it's just drawing in air mixing in with it. That instance will result in, when you're trying to rev the engine, it'll start fine, but when you go to rev it up, it just dies under load. Now, there's a million other reasons for it, but in this instance, this is something that you want to check. So let's drain this and I'll show you the results. So if you're lucky enough to have one of the old mills with these nice nylon tanks on here, that's fantastic. But all I've done is I've removed the two fuel lines, taken these two bolts out, and removed this cover. Hold on, this is going to take a second. It's a bit of a nightmare. Well, that was easy, but no, it wasn't. Anyways, this comes off. Be mindful of this. I popped it out just to make this easier, but what we're going to do now is take this down and run it through this water gas separator 9000 filter. It just got us a really fine screen in there that water can't get through, but fuel can. So we're going to put this in a nice clean bucket and we'll show you the results. So I've just got a simple clean bucket set up, the strainer 5500 sitting here with this handyman's favorite secret weapon here, the baling wire, holding it on just so I can do this with one hand, and we're going to pour this in and we'll see what happens. Ideally, I was hoping to find a split in the tank, but I'm almost certain it's going to be cutting through one of those grommets up top, which at the end of it all, if I do find that this was the issue, I'll put some RTV around it and hopefully prevent this in the future. Got a curiosity, you should see it by now. You can see there is some in there that won't pass through the filter, so there's definitely some water in there. Let's take the filter off and dump that out and see what's in there. There's also a whole bunch of other miscellaneous debris in there as well. What the hell is that? Plastic, foil. It probably looks like one of those fuel additive jugs. that they dump in here, the little part you pull off. That looks like it's been in there. That ain't doing anybody any favors. Yeah, and a whole bunch of other crap too. So we'll dispose of this in an environmentally friendly way, and we'll take the filter out and see how that is. So there was definitely fuel in the, or water and fuel in the tank, and you can see there is a little bit in here too. This isn't an approved container. So we've emptied out the fuel filter. I don't know if you can see that, but there is just still sludge and water in there. So we're gonna put a new fuel filter on, we'll blow out the lines, throw some fresh fuel in, and we'll see how this pans out. All right, so don't worry about the annoying grinder that's going on in the background. So here's what we've done. We've refiltered this fuel twice. I will top it off with fresh fuel, but I filtered it twice through the water strainer, rehooked everything all back up, installed a new fuel filter on it. Write the hours down when you do it, so the guy running the saw can just stare at that hours every time he's running it, so he knows when it's time to change it again. Probably about every 100 hours. That's when I recommend doing it. So anyways, got this flash back up, and the vent tube out here, as it's running, you'll see little droplets of water coming. It's not fuel, you can sit here and feel it. So moral of the story is I'm gonna have to pull the top of this off, get into the float bowl, drain all that out. I mean, you could let it sit here and run for 20 minutes and eventually flush it all out, but it's not gonna do anybody any favors. I'm not gonna be lazy. We're gonna pull the top of this off, get into the float bowl, spray it out, clean it out, and we'll go from there. I'll kind of get you guys in here so that if you have to do this, it won't be such an overwhelming task. So all you need is an 8mm wrench. You take off this bolt, that bolt, and the 1, 2, 3 of those off here, and for the love of all that is holy, don't drop them down the throat of the carburetor, because you're going to be in for a world of hurt. So you just pull this one vent tube out, and you can just flop this out of the way. And kind of give you a bit of room to operate. So what we're going to do is take all of these top Phillips head screws off of the top of the carburetor. We'll just lift the top off, and we'll get into that. So once you got those 1, 2, and there's 2 on the back side, 4 in total Phillips head screws, look like that. You just gently lift up, and you can see the float way back yonder. You can see the needle and seat at the back, which we know it's working. As you can see it. Oh, let me get you in there. You can see she's going up and down, so that's not stuck. All it is a matter of that we have excess water in here mixed in with this fuel. Don't know as you're going to see it, but what I'm going to do right now is just remove all of this with a rag, throw it out, we'll clean the float bowl out, and we'll go from there. Really easy way to do it is just to throw some absorbent towel in there and keep going around until she's all drained out, and then we'll make sure we spray it out with some cleaner and get all the debris out of there, and we'll move on. So we got everything cleaned out. She's nice and dry, everything's all wiped out. Sprayed her with some more carbon choke cleaner, wash the bowl. Now, if you ever have an issue where it'll run, if you dump fuel down the carburetor and it's the only time it'll run, this is your fuel shut-off solenoid switch right here. I've covered this in about 50 other videos here. But anyways, that bad boy is located right there. So if this wasn't filling up, this would be the thing to check. You can go back through and I believe it's the LT40 restoration video. I went through this extensively. But what'll happen is the needle and seat, if you ain't moving up and down like that, the very, very base of the needle and seat, you'll see just from running ethanol fuel, it'll gum up and either hold this down or else it'll be stuck shut like that. So if you need to, this is how you remove the top. This is a really easy way to do it. I mean, don't make this harder than it has to be. It's really simple. Don't be afraid to try these things, because when it pays off in the end, when everything starts working again, you're going to appreciate it. So after you got the top of the carburetor put back on, you tighten those 4 screws up. Put the plate back on. You don't have to remove this hose. This will just flip and lay out of the way again. Baling wire's your friend when you're working by yourself. Then you just have to pull this hose back through until the grommet seats. We'll reinstall the 3 bolts up top, and then the 2 in the back. You'll need an 8mm wrench for those. We'll stuff the hose back through, and we'll see how she runs. Well, there you have it. Something as simple as water getting into the fuel Very easy to diagnose if you know what you're looking for. We went through, we changed everything. I ended up throwing new spark plugs in it, and rev her up. Seems to run really, really good. It doesn't cough or stumble or anything else like that. So hopefully if you come across something like this, it won't be such a daunting task, and you'll be able to tackle it head on and get back to sawing. So hope this helps, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.